Hey everybody, so on today's episode of AMAX Encyclopedia, answers to questions that nobody asks, we're 1,000 rounds in on Revolver. What have we learned? I'm a little over 1,000 rounds, and really I haven't dug into it yet as far as really trying to shoot matches with it. I've just been trying to dial in all my equipment, all my hand loads, shoot the gun, get the gun set up. So I haven't really started shooting a bunch of matches with it. I've shot a grand total of one match and a local match, but we're just kind of getting into it. I did have a few extensive range sessions with it though, really getting dialed in, seeing what I think on it, and a few things just jump off the page for me. One, I don't know who the heck recommends these things to new shooters. Nah, like any perceived simplicity here is far exceeded by either required mechanical knowledge of like intricate mechanical things, or they're unforgiving. There's a few things in them that are just unforgiving. For example, if you are staging a shot and then you back out of it, or you short stroke the trigger, you can lock up the gun in ways that you're not going to on a semi-auto pistol. On a semi-auto pistol, you can stage the trigger and back out of it and start over again. Whereas as soon as you start to index and prep a trigger on a revolver, the train has left the station, kind of on that particular cylinder. Like, well, you just rotate to the next one. Okay, well, what if you need to get back to that other one? I mean, that takes time too, versus any malfunction reload. So I think while they are cool, they are simplistic in nature. In reality, actually living with these things, I don't know that they're any better. I think we went away from these for a good reason. They are, as a shooter though, as an enthusiast, I do think they are interesting. So I do think it is an aspect of the game that is intellectually interesting and fun to play, fun to dig into if you're looking for that kind of thing. Not for beginners. It's just such an interesting dichotomy to me that people would say a 1911 is a professional's gun, is an enthusiast gun, but we would recommend revolvers to absolute green beginners. Guess what? I have never had screws fall out of my 1911 ever. All right. Every single screw on this gun has come loose, and there's more than 5 of them. All right. Every single one has come loose. This particular one holds in the yoke. So this thing actually is kind of falling apart right now. And that's not a ding on Smith & Wesson or anything, but it is a common enough issue that there are only 2 parts for the 627 you can buy on brownells.com, like parts, not accessories, parts. One of them is that screw, because that screw falling out apparently is fairly common. So if you're going to run these things for any serious use length of time, you're either going to have to periodically check tension on those screws, or you probably use some Loctite. So we've learned that Loctite is our friend. What else have we learned? Kind of like the back straps that come with most pistols, the grips that come stock on this thing are absolute trash, I think, for anything of serious use. Now, most of the people buying a 357 Magnum revolver are either going to plink with it at the range or maybe use it hunting. For that, maybe this grip is okay, but I think this grip feels good in the store. It definitely feels good, but to shoot the gun properly and to shoot the gun aggressively, I think it puts your hand in the wrong place. It forces your hand to be low on the gun, whereas we kind of have arrived at, in auto pistols, we're trying to get as high on the gun as possible. In very short order, I was fighting this grip to get my hand where I wanted it high on the gun. So it had to go. And then the other thing is when you have to manipulate a revolver so much compared to an auto pistol. Like, it has to leave your hand position more than in an auto pistol. This grip is super sticky, which is good if we want it to stay there. But if we want the gun to move around, some of what gets you into trouble on auto pistols, if you get a bad grip, you kind of got to play it as it lies. Well, if you get a bad grip on a revolver, similar, but you have far more opportunities on a stage to get a bad grip. And so that is where the Miklik grip came from. Now, part of the reason that I'm shooting revolvers at all is Jerry is one of my initial inspirations to get into action shooting sports at all. Watching him set his revolver records in 1999 opened my eyes to the world of competition shooting and exhibition shooting. And that was done with this. And it's kind of ironic. I've been in the sport this long, and I haven't actually visited this part that inspired me so much. But one of the things, in the JM world, I mean, he's done a few signature revolvers. This isn't one of them, but he's done a few signature revolvers. And one of the things is that it comes with his grip. And when I was getting started, people who were shooting revolvers and bought those revolvers, this was one of the first things they would get rid of. I remember one in particular, a guy that got me into pistol shooting. He said pretty much the only person that likes that grip is Jerry. So almost everyone changes it right away. You dig into it a little bit further, if you listen carefully to what the wise man says, he designed this grip for a couple reasons, because he's trying to get a high purchase on the revolver when he's shooting it. And in all of Jerry's guns, if you look at Jerry's guns closely, I've handled a lot of Jerry's guns, being around him and both on his squad and officiating matches. In 3-gun, you get to handle people's guns. All of Jerry's guns are pretty slick. There is not a lot of skateboard tape. There's not a lot of stippling, none of that. That comes from his revolver era of having to break this thing down and get a new grip so many times. The quote that he said stuck with me is if I can hold on to it well, it can hold me back. So it's kind of one of those equal and opposite things. If it's grippy for you to hold on to, it's also hard to let go of. And so all of Jerry's stuff, he likes to be smooth. So if he gets kind of a bad grip, he can let the gun slip around in his hand. He can get to the right spot, or he has less resistance to get to the right spot. So that's part of where the grip came from. In that, it allows for a higher grip, and it allows for the gun to move around a little bit more, which is kind of the opposite of the way a lot of auto pistols are. I mean, a lot of our auto pistols, we're setting them up so that basically once your hand's there, like, that thing is locked in. Think about like some of the 20 LPI checkering that was done to combat 1911s in the 90s, like for Delta and the FBI contract pistols. Those were very sharp, very aggressive stippling, or not stippling, those would be checkering on those pistols, because they didn't want them to move. So it's kind of the opposite end of that spectrum. And I felt that with this, where like I got a bad grip and it was hard to get to the right place because I couldn't move my hand. So I moved to this. Now, because it's not grippy, you do have to squeeze tighter. You do have to hold on tighter. It does move around a little bit more. But other people's bias had swayed me away from this grip initially, and this was one of the first things when I decided to do this. This was one of the first things I wanted to add to my pistol, or to my revolver. So I actually paid cash money for it. I got the little packing slip right here. I bought it from the man himself with cash money. And I got his trigger kit too. His trigger kit is actually very similar, or very simple, I guess I should say. And at first, like, I don't know what I don't know, so I didn't want to change a whole lot. But when I started trying to shoot it in USPSA type stuff, the first thing I noticed was that it was hard to let go of the trigger. Like a lot of every ding dong that wants to be a YouTube reviewer wants to show you how the reset is on every pistol. Oh, look at that reset, right? I don't even really know what they're talking about. They just know they're supposed to say that. Well, here's a reset for you, okay? You got to let the thing all the way out. In semi-auto pistols, essentially what we're saying is you can game that a little bit. You don't have to let it all the way out. Well, here you do have to let it all the way out. And I almost felt like when I was first trying to shoot targets fast, I couldn't let go of the trigger fast enough. So again, I go back and I listen to some of the things that Jerry says, and in his trigger kit, one of the things he says is he wants a smooth pull. Yes, who doesn't? But he wants a smooth reset too. So it's actually an extra power reset spring, and then a special contour mainspring housing. So these are the two springs. These are the OEM Smith & Wesson springs that I took out of the gun. The Miklik springs are in the gun, and I noticed them almost immediately. It is a very reasonably priced trigger kit. If you can detail strip any common service semi-auto pistol, you could install that kit. If you can detail strip a 1911, if you can take an M&P down to the frame, if you can take all the guts out of a Smith or a Glock, you can install that trigger kit. All right, there's no filing, there's no polishing. It's basic disassembly, replace two things, reassembly, and it makes a big difference. And he has a couple really good videos to show you how to install that. So I would absolutely recommend, if you're going to try this for real, getting the Miklik grip, which is different than what you will see in USPSA. A lot of them will have the club foot hoe grips. I'm not really sure what those are about. I have no desire to shoot one of those, even if it is an advantage. I think what it is they want to shoot the long barrel to get a longer sight radius, but also to get more velocity on a smaller powder charge. So they want to shoot the really long 6.5-inch barrels, and I think having that weight down there somewhat gives them more of a balance point. But it also turns into kind of an awkward thing that I don't want to shoot. I'm a 4-inch kind of guy, so this is kind of the revolver configuration I want to shoot. I actually want to shoot a 6.25, but the rules have changed the sport so much that you're just way outclassed shooting 6 shots major versus 8 shots minor. So the grip, the trigger kit for sure. I had the hammer bobbed. I haven't done anything other to the hammer other than to have it bobbed, and I had it bobbed. We have someone at work who's willing to do that for us, and we have a machine shop at work, so I handed him my hammer and I said, hey, could you do this? And what I wanted him to do is I wanted it to lay flush when it was at rest. I kind of wanted it to be flush when it was reset, but if you look, there's not really a whole lot of material left there. So I wasn't sure if we would have enough mass on a hammer to cut that much off, and once you cut it off, you can't put it back on. So as a conservative start, I wanted the hammer bobbed, and really wanted to do that because when I grip it, similar to what Jerry says, when you're gripping it really high, that spur will actually catch your hammer, like your hand will actually impede the action of the hammer. So it was pretty apparent pretty quickly that I wanted that gone, and really all they did was cut that off. It's still a functional single action trigger if you want to, but I just don't see that being at all practical for what I'm gonna do. And this pistol is pretty much getting set up to play action shooting games with. Almost right away, I also noticed that I am going to need to chamfer the cylinders, or want to chamfer the cylinders. I ordered some tooling to do that, but that is kind of the last thing I'm probably going to do to this pistol before I really put my head down and start working on reloads. But the way this particular one, just in the playing around with it that I've done, I can see that I definitely want to chamfer my chambers before I really get going on that. So that has become apparent as well. Accuracy on the pistol is pretty good, or revolver is pretty good. About what I would expect from any of my other guns in my stable. I've actually, since becoming comfortable with a double action pull in carry optics, some carry optics shooting, I wasn't as scared of double action as I used to be. And now that I put a few solid range sessions in, pretty comfortable with getting the hits I need in double action, and I only see it speeding up from there. This particular pistol I shoot in 38 short Colt. 38 short Colt, what the heck is that? Essentially, 38 short Colt is the parent cartridge that became 357 Magnum. 38 short Colt is what the black powder conversion, the first black powder cartridge, when they were converting pistols over from cap and ball revolvers into cartridge firing revolvers. 38 short Colt was one of those, became 38 long. That was the one that ultimately in the Philippines they would decide they needed a 45 and birth the whole 1911 thing. So that was 38 long. 38 long became 38 special in the commercial market. 38 special was then evolved into 357 Magnum. But in all that, they essentially were deciding that they needed more and more powder in a cartridge. They wanted more case capacity. Well, we have also, in the last 200 years, improved our propellants. So now propellants that we're contemporarily using today, say, a contemporary charge of tight group, you only need about that much case to get that in there. And then in a revolver where we're trying to stick this thing into a chamber, and there's 8 of these things that wobble around a little bit, so we're trying to get all of these to line up, a shorter package, a shorter cartridge is more advantageous for trying to get that thing loaded in there than a longer one. So I can make readily USPSA and I-Core, for that matter, minor power factor loads with essentially this archaic cartridge, which now basically equates to into 9mm rimmed. So if 9mm is a rimless cartridge, all right, so there's nothing there, it's really just an extractor groove, whereas a revolver cartridge has a rim that the ejector rod, I have to kind of hold my pistol here together, but that's how the ejector kicks stuff out of the cylinder. So we need kind of a rimmed cartridge for most contemporary revolvers, and now, although it wasn't intended this way, 38 short Colt is essentially 9mm rimmed. So you can shoot this in a 38 or a 357 Magnum without modification and without a moon clip. But this pistol is modified for moon clips, and in the sport, that's what we're using. So I am shooting 38 short Colt currently, and I also learned that moon clips are not moon clips. This is something that would surprise auto shooters. There is no industry standard for, let's see if we can get the camera to focus on it here. There is no industry standard for how deep or how wide that groove is underneath the rim there. So they actually make different clips for different brands of brass. So I'm using Starline brass right now. There's a Starline specific clip that holds them a little tighter, and the tighter we can hold them, the more consistently they're going to go in the hole. And that is just kind of some of the stuff that I have initially learned here. I learned more than I ever wanted to about 38 short Colt and moon clips. For moon clips, you definitely want to get this tool. I'm not endorsed by these people at all. I paid full price for it. But this mooning tool actually moons and demoons the cartridges. So there's a little magnet in there, holds it in place. You can stick them in there, and one side of this cap attaches it, one side of the cap detaches it, and that is fairly unique in the world of revolver tools. There's lots of mooning tools. There's lots of demooning tools. This one does them both. And it makes my inner child very happy. So love this thing. But that is some of what we've learned so far in our world of revolvers. Really looking forward to getting this thing dialed in and hitting some matches this winter. I have a few 3-gun matches that I want to stay sharp on auto pistols for yet this fall, but as we run up to it here, I do think I am going to do some revolver shooting as those wrap up, and I'm super stoked to get in on it. It has been a fun journey so far. Hopefully it'll be interesting for you folks as well. To give you a point of reference though, like my first time yesterday shooting a plate rack, I'm shooting about 3.5, 3.6 splits to shoot a plate rack at 7 yards. Jerry's world record is 20 splits. So we have some speed to find, but we're working with good stock, and we're pretty dialed in to give this a go here. So if you're interested in revolver shooting at all, as I dig into this a little bit more, have some more match experience, I'm going to break down the millennial guide to revolver shooting, what to buy, what not to buy. But this is just kind of some initial impressions on the journey. If you're interested, stay tuned, and we'll have more coming. So with that, see you guys on the range.